Sometimes life feels like you're carrying the same heavy song on repeat. The same reactions, the same thoughts, the same relationships, circling back like a well-worn track. You wake up, and though the days are different on the calendar, inside, they feel strangely the same. Familiar, but empty, exhausting. And yet, right now, there's a quiet stirring inside you. Something subtle, almost impossible to name, but undeniable. This isn't just another burst of motivation or a fleeting spark of hope. This is the first whisper of transformation, the kind that doesn't come from forcing, but from awareness itself beginning to reorganize. And here you are, watching this message. You might believe it's the algorithm that brought you here, or coincidence. But deep down, you know better. You know something larger has nudged your attention, as if life itself wanted you to pause here. In this exact moment, not random, not meaningless. A sign that your new life isn't waiting on the horizon, it's unfolding now. In the very space where you're sitting, transformation rarely feels the way we think it should. We imagine it as clarity, as sudden bursts of inspiration that make everything simple. But anyone who's truly stood at the edge of change knows it often feels messy, uncertain, like standing between radio stations, catching fragments of who you used to be and faint glimpses of who you're becoming, but never fully landing in either. That dissonance, that uneasiness, it isn't failure. It's the sound of consciousness stretching beyond its old walls. Think about the times you've promised yourself to live differently, to be calmer, more patient, more trusting, and yet, within days, you found yourself back in the same old loops, snapping in frustration, doubting your intuition, or questioning if you were capable of real change. Those cycles weren't proof that you're weak. They were proof that your old reality was resisting collapse, the same way a seed resists cracking open before new life can emerge. What feels like chaos is often the beginning of a new order. Neuroscience even confirms this. Just before a breakthrough, the brain often enters a state of greater noise, greater instability. It's as if the system has to destabilize before it can reorganize at a higher level. In spiritual terms, it's the moment just before rebirth. It feels like losing your footing. But in truth, the ground beneath you is rearranging itself to hold something more expansive. Here's where many people get lost. They dismiss those stirrings. They explain them away as stress, as overthinking. They bury themselves back in routines, distractions, and familiar habits. But life is patient. It keeps offering invitations to evolve, and if we refuse, the invitation returns again, sometimes louder, sometimes as crisis, not to punish us, but to remind us we were meant to expand. Every choice becomes sacred in this light. Not the big dramatic decisions, but the quiet ones, the moments when you lean toward the unknown instead of retreating into what feels safe. Each small step into expansion reshapes the quantum field around you. Each time you return to the familiar, you reinforce the same probability patterns. Life will never stop offering you both doors. The question is, which one will you choose this time? And here's the beautiful truth: the universe does not judge. It doesn't scold you for the times you hesitated or turned back. It simply offers again and again, with infinite patience. Every challenge, every relationship, every disruption, it's all perfectly designed to nudge you toward the life that's trying to be born through you. You may have already felt this. Those uncanny coincidences, synchronicities, hearing the same phrase in a podcast, a book, and from a friend, all in 1 week. Seeing signs that point you toward trust, surrender, or presence. It's not just selective attention. It's the universe speaking through you, not to you. These moments are not outside confirmations. They're reflections of your own consciousness becoming coherent enough to see itself in the mirror of reality. But transformation asks for space. if your days are filled with routines that keep you unconscious, if your energy is tied up in relationships that drain you, if your mind clings to the old story of limitation, then the new has no soil to root in. True change often begins with release, and release is rarely comfortable. Letting go of the familiar can feel scarier than holding on to the pain you already know. But just as a caterpillar must dissolve before becoming a butterfly, we too must let aspects of ourselves soften, dissolve, and fall away for new life to emerge. It's important to remember that this dissolution is not destruction. It's reorganization at the deepest level. What feels like falling apart is really compost fertile ground for what's next. Those tears, those fears, those moments of uncertainty, they are not signs of weakness. They are contractions before a birth, the birth of your new life. And here's the paradox. The new life isn't waiting for you somewhere far ahead. It's here, now. Every time you slow down enough to taste your coffee instead of rushing through it, every time you breathe into your chest and feel space opening within you, every time you choose presence over distraction, these small moments are the first glimpses of your expanded self. They are evidence that the shift is already happening. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not waiting for something outside to fix you. You are an infinite field of potential. Always here, always whole, simply reorganizing into new patterns, like water that shifts between ice, liquid, and vapor. You remain the same essence while taking new forms. Your consciousness, too, is reshaping itself not by effort or control, but by surrender, by awareness, by trust. So breathe, feel this truth in your body, not just your mind. You didn't find this message by accident. The same intelligence that stirs the seasons, that opens flowers in spring, that guides the tides of the ocean, that same intelligence is stirring in you right now. It has prepared you your entire life for this moment. Your new life has already begun. Not tomorrow, not someday now. All that's left is your willingness to let go of what no longer serves you and to allow what wants to be born through you. 1. The power of synchronicity. Life has a mysterious way of speaking to us, and most of the time, it whispers rather than shouts. If you've ever felt that certain words, symbols, or encounters keep appearing in your path, you know what I mean. Perhaps you hear a phrase from a stranger that stirs something in you, and then you stumble across the same phrase in a book that happens to fall open in your hands. Later that week, you hear it again on a podcast, or from a friend who had no idea it was already echoing in your heart. These are not random coincidences. They are what Carl Jung called synchronicities, meaningful alignments that arise when your inner world begins to resonate with the field of life around you. For many years, I used to dismiss these moments. I would tell myself, it's just my imagination. I'm paying more attention. That's all. But the more I walk through both light and darkness, the more I realize there is a deeper intelligence at play. These signs are not outside messages being sent to me. They are reflections of my own expanding awareness. It's as though consciousness itself is showing me a mirror, saying, look, you are ready for this now. Synchronicity is not about chasing signs or trying to decode every small event. It is about recognizing the quiet rhythm of life, the way your internal state and your external experiences begin to weave together in harmony. When you are closed off, stuck in fear or doubt, life feels fragmented, disconnected, even hostile at times. But as soon as your awareness expands, the world around you responds with coherence. Suddenly, you notice patterns, connections, echoes of the same truth in places you never expected. That is the field of reality reorganizing itself to meet your new vibration. Let me give you an image. Imagine standing by a river. When the water is turbulent, it's hard to see what lies beneath. Stones look distorted. Branches twist and blur under the waves. But when the river calms, everything becomes clear. Synchronicity works in the same way. As your inner state quiets and steadies, life reflects back the clarity you carry. The patterns were always there, but now you can finally see them. Some might say, but isn't this just the brain noticing what it wants to notice? And yes, part of that is true. Our minds are wired for pattern recognition. But what if pattern recognition itself is the language through which the universe communicates with us? What if the brain's ability to notice is not a trick, but a tool, a doorway into seeing how consciousness and reality are entangled? Quantum physics suggests that the observer doesn't just witness reality, the observer participates in creating it. If that's true, then the signs you notice are not simply there by chance. They are appearing because you are ready to see them, ready to live them. I remember a season in my life when I was wrestling with deep uncertainty. I had left behind a path that no longer nourished me, but the new direction had not yet revealed itself. During those months, I kept hearing the phrase, "Trust the process." At first, it annoyed me. I thought, that's too simple. I need real answers, not cliché. Yet the phrase followed me on a billboard, in conversations, in the quiet space of meditation. Eventually, I realized it was not a cliché at all. It was the exact medicine I needed. Life was echoing my own deeper, knowing back to me until I was finally willing to accept it. This is the gift of synchronicity. It validates what your soul already knows, even if your mind still resists. It's like life, taking you gently by the shoulders and saying, "Yes, this way, keep walking." And when you start listening, you discover that the world is not silent at all. It is alive, communicative, and endlessly creative in how it mirrors you. But here's something important. Synchronicity is not meant to be worshipped. It's not about building your life around signs or fearing that you'll miss them. It's about learning to recognize the resonance between your inner and outer worlds and allowing that resonance to guide you. When you live this way, even the smallest events become meaningful. A song on the radio, the timing of a phone call, the way the sunlight breaks through the clouds at just the right moment, all of it becomes a reminder that you are not separate from the intelligence of the universe. You are part of it, moving with it, breathing with it. Sometimes synchronicities test us. They appear again and again, almost daring us to trust them. They invite us to step beyond doubt, to act from intuition rather than logic alone. Each repeated pattern is an invitation. Will you lean into expansion or retreat into the safety of what you already know? The more we choose to trust, the stronger the resonance becomes, and the more fluidly life seems to move around us. You don't have to force this process. Synchronicity is not born from effort. It is born from coherence. The more you allow yourself to slow down, to breathe, to be present, the more naturally these alignments show up. It's like tuning an instrument. When your strings are tight with fear or slack with apathy, the music is off. But when you're tuned to the frequency of awareness, every note you play harmonizes with the larger symphony of existence. Think of a time in your life when everything seemed to flow, when the right people appeared at the right moment, when opportunities unfolded with grace, when you felt carried by something larger than yourself. That flow wasn't random. It was synchronicity. It was life reflecting your own inner coherence. So when you notice these patterns now, when a phrase keeps circling back, or an image keeps returning, or a person shows up in your life in unexpected ways, don't brush it off. Don't drown it out with doubt. Pause. Listen. Ask yourself, what is my awareness trying to tell me through this reflection? The answer will not come from analyzing too hard. It will rise naturally, like a seed sprouting in the right soil, if you simply give it space. The power of synchronicity is not that life is giving you signs from the outside. It is that you are finally awake enough to recognize your own consciousness reflected everywhere. It is proof that you are not lost. You are aligned. And each pattern you notice is a gentle reminder. The universe and your own awareness are not two things. They are one field, one song, one breath. So let the signs be what they are, an embrace from the fabric of existence itself. And know this, the more you trust them, the more you trust yourself, because in the end, they are not pointing you outward. They are pointing you home. 2. The challenge of letting go. Letting go is one of the most difficult, yet most sacred acts a human being can choose. We like to believe that transformation is about adding more practices, more affirmations, more steps toward becoming the person we dream of. But in truth, authentic transformation often begins not with addition, but with release. It's like the seed resting in the dark soil. For it to grow into a tree, its protective shell must dissolve. That shell once had purpose. It safeguarded the seed, kept it intact, carried it through seasons. But at a certain point, the very layer that protected becomes the barrier that suffocates. The seed cannot grow unless it allows its old form to fall apart. In the same way, each of us carries shells, habits, relationships, beliefs that once helped us survive, but now quietly restrict our expansion. The challenge of letting go is that it rarely feels comfortable. The human mind clings to what is familiar, even when it is painful. A toxic relationship, for instance, may leave us drained after every conversation. Yet we return to it again and again because its pain is predictable. The thought of stepping into the unknown, of being without that anchor, however harmful, feels terrifying. And so we choose the hurt we know over the freedom we cannot yet imagine. I've lived this many times. There were moments in my life when I knew, deep down, that something had to change. A job that once gave me stability became a prison. A story I told myself about who I was became too small for the person I was becoming. But walking away felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with no bridge in sight. It felt like death, and in a sense, it was the death of an identity, the death of a version of me that could no longer carry me forward. This is why letting go is often mistaken for weakness. Tears flow, fear rises. Our sense of self feels like it's dissolving. But if you've ever watched the tide pull back from the shore, you know that what looks like retreat is simply preparation for the next great wave. Letting go is not collapse. It is a sacred pause, the clearing of space, so something truer can arrive. Sometimes the things we must release are obvious: a job that depletes us, a habit that numbs us, a relationship that keeps us small. But often, the more subtle layers are the hardest to see. Maybe it's the quiet voice in your mind insisting you are not enough. Maybe it's the old belief that worth must be earned through suffering. Maybe it's the unspoken loyalty to who your family or culture expected you to be. These inner patterns are like roots that tangle around the heart, hidden but strong. Pulling them free takes time, courage, and tenderness. And here's what I've come to understand. Letting go does not always mean throwing things away in anger or cutting ties with harshness. True release is not rejection, it is recognition. You look at the story, the person, the belief, and you say, "You carried me this far. I honor the role you played, but I cannot carry you into the next chapter." There is grace in this kind of farewell. It is compost, not destruction. What dissolves becomes the very soil from which your new life grows. I want to be clear, letting go is not easy. It asks for faith in what cannot yet be seen. It requires standing in the emptiness that comes after the old has fallen away, but before the new has taken form. This in-between space can feel unbearable. We wake up and no longer recognize ourselves. The routines that gave us structure are gone, yet the new rhythm has not yet begun. It feels like floating in a vast unknown. But if you can stay with this emptiness, something miraculous happens. Slowly, the The silence fills with subtle guidance. You notice a deeper breath moving through you. You sense an aliveness returning. Small sparks of joy appear where before there was only numbness. It doesn't come all at once. It unfolds like dawn, soft, patient, inevitable. I think of a time when I left a role that gave me financial security, but starved my spirit. The first weeks afterward were hollow. I questioned myself every day. But in that hollowness, I started noticing things I had long ignored: the way sunlight played on the walls, the curiosity in my own thoughts, the presence of people who cared for me without condition. It was in the space of letting go that my true life began to take shape. We often fear that releasing something means losing it forever. But in reality, what is true never leaves us. Love does not vanish when we end a relationship. Wisdom does not disappear when we walk away from a job. Everything real remains, but it returns in new forms, aligned with who we are becoming. What leaves us is only the shell, the structure that once carried the essence, but can no longer hold it. So when you stand at the edge of letting go, remember this: you are not throwing your life away. You are creating sacred ground for your next becoming. Each tear, each tremor of fear, each uncertain step is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of courage. You are dissolving, so you may grow. Letting go is the gateway into your new reality. It's not about being reckless or abandoning responsibility. It's about releasing what no longer serves your deepest truth, so you can finally make space for what does. Just as a garden cannot flourish in soil choked with weeds, your life cannot flourish while clinging to what drains your vitality. The moment you create space, the new begins to find you. And so I say this gently, from someone who has been through many dark nights: letting go will not destroy you. It will transform you. Like the seed dissolving in the soil, like the tide pulling back to gather strength, like the breath you exhale to make space for the next release, is not the end. It is the beginning of everything that is waiting to be born through you. 3. The Principle of Superposition. In the strange and beautiful world of quantum physics, there is a principle called superposition. It tells us that a single particle can exist in multiple states at the same time until it is observed. The moment of observation collapses those possibilities into one reality. To a physicist, this is mathematics and experiment. But to those of us walking through the uncertainties of life, it is more than theory. It is a mirror of our own human experience. You, right now, are living in superposition. At this very moment, you exist in the version of yourself that stays the same, holding on to old habits, identities, and stories. And you also exist in the version of yourself that is ready to transform, to expand, to live differently. Both realities are alive within you. Both are possibilities in the field of your being. And the choice you make, what you release, what you trust, what you give your energy to, becomes the act of observation that collapses the wave, anchoring you into the timeline of your new life. This is why change can feel so intense. It is not simply that you are moving from one chapter to another. You are literally straddling two worlds at once. A part of you still belongs to the comfort of what has been, and another part longs for the unknown of what could be. Some days you feel yourself slipping back into the old. Other days, you glimpse the new with such clarity it takes your breath away. Both are real. Both are possible. Until the moment you decide to step fully into one. Think of it this way. Imagine standing at a fork in the road. To the left is the path you know well, the familiar bends, the same landmarks, the same destination you've reached 100 times. To the right is a path that disappears into the forest. You cannot see where it leads. You can feel both roads beneath your feet. For a while, you may even stand with one foot on each path. But sooner or later, you must choose. And that choice collapses your reality into one lived direction. Superposition explains why indecision feels so heavy. When you resist choosing, when you linger too long between possibilities, you are literally carrying the weight of two worlds at once. It is exhausting because your consciousness is stretched thin, entangled with realities that contradict each other. That tension is not a sign that you are broken. It is simply the nature of transformation, and the way forward is not to force clarity, but to allow it to breathe, to trust, to listen until one possibility begins to resonate more deeply than the others. I've known this in my own life. There were seasons when I held on tightly to the old, afraid of what the collapse might bring. A job title, a role, an identity. They felt like safety, but inside, I could feel the stirrings of another possibility, one that demanded I let the shell crack open. The longer I hesitated, the more torn I felt, like a rope pulled in two directions. The moment I chose, the moment I let go and stepped forward, everything reorganized. The confusion dissolved. Energy that had been stuck returned as flow. The wave collapsed, and life began moving with coherence again. Superposition also teaches us compassion. When you see someone stuck in hesitation, cycling through the same patterns, it's easy to judge, but remember, they are not weak. They are simply standing between multiple versions of themselves, trying to gather the courage to collapse into the new, and that is one of the most tender, vulnerable places a human being can stand. What gives us the courage to choose? It is rarely logic alone. The mind always finds reasons to cling to the old. The courage often comes from a deeper place, a whisper from the heart, a sense of alignment, a subtle knowing that says, this way, and when you honor that knowing, even if it terrifies you, you activate the mechanics of superposition. You collapse the field into the reality where your transformation is inevitable. There is another layer here that is important to see. In superposition, nothing is wasted. Even the versions of yourself that you don't choose still matter. They remain as part of the field, as wisdom, as possibility. Choosing one path doesn't erase the others. It simply means you no longer live inside them. They become echoes, reminders of who you might have been, fueling gratitude for who you are now becoming. Nature shows us this truth again and again. The caterpillar in its cocoon is neither fully caterpillar nor butterfly. For a time, it exists in both states simultaneously, dissolved into a soup of potential. Only when the process completes does the butterfly emerge, the wave collapsing into new form, and in that moment, the life of the caterpillar is not erased. It is integrated, honored, carried forward in the wings that now take flight. So what does this mean for you? Here and now. It means that your hesitations, your contradictions, your in-between states are not failures. They are physics. They are the natural mechanics of transformation playing out through your consciousness. The invitation is to stop fearing the tension and to start recognizing it as proof that you are holding more than one reality inside you. The discomfort is evidence of growth. And here is the healing truth. You don't collapse the wave by force. You don't need to pressure yourself into clarity. You collapse it by presence, by trust, by the willingness to release what no longer belongs. The moment you set down the story that has held you captive, the moment you let go of the shell that feels too small, the wave collapses, and in that collapse, the new reality emerges, not because you built it through control, but because you allowed it through surrender. So if you find yourself standing between worlds, one foot in the past and one foot in the future, take heart. This is superposition. This is the sacred threshold, where everything is possible. The question is not whether you are capable of change. The question is only this: are you willing to release the old so the new can take root? When you do, you will discover that the universe was waiting all along. The field is already alive with the version of you who has stepped forward, who has grown, who has expanded. That version is not distant. It is right here, waiting for your choice. And when you choose, when you let the wave collapse, you will feel what I have felt. The relief of coherence, the peace of alignment, the quiet joy of finally stepping into the life that was always meant for you. 4. The spiral rhythm of evolution. Most of us have been taught to see life as a straight ladder. Step by step, we climb higher, one rung after another, never looking back. We measure progress by how far away we are from where we began, as if the past should be left behind once and for all. But real growth does not unfold like a ladder. It moves like a spiral. On this spiral path, you often find yourself returning to familiar places. Old patterns resurface. Old wounds ache again. Old lessons you thought you had already mastered knock once more on your door. And in those moments, it is tempting to believe you are failing, that you have slipped backward, that nothing has truly changed. But the spiral teaches us something far deeper. You are not back at the same point. You are meeting the same lesson again. But from a higher vantage, what you face is not repetition, it is integration. Think of it like walking up a mountain trail that spirals around the peak. From below, you see a certain tree, a certain rock formation. Hours later, you pass that same view again, but now you are several hundred feet higher. The tree looks smaller, the horizon wider, the air thinner. What has returned is not proof of stagnation, it is proof that you have ascended. This rhythm of spiraling is at the core of human evolution. You may heal from heartbreak and feel whole again, only to encounter a new relationship that awakens the same tender places. You may overcome fear in one season, only to feel it rise again when life stretches you in new directions. You may forgive someone once, only to find deeper layers of that forgiveness years later. This is not regression. This is the spiral at work, drawing you into deeper levels of wisdom, compassion, and presence. I remember a season in my own life when I thought I had finally released an old wound of unworthiness. I felt free, confident, unshaken. And then, years later, a new situation arose. And there it was again, that familiar ache, that voice whispering, I was not enough. For a moment, I felt defeated. Haven't I dealt with this already? But then I realized I was not the same person who had met that wound before. This time, I had more awareness, more compassion, more inner strength. Meeting the same shadow from this higher place gave me the chance not only to heal it further, but to embrace it as part of the fabric of my wholeness. The spiral rhythm saves us from the illusion of perfection. If growth were a straight line, then any return to difficulty would mean failure. But the spiral reminds us that the return is essential. Life circles us back, not to punish, but to deepen. It offers us another turn of the spiral, another chance to embody what we've learned, to live our truth with greater depth. Nature, too, reveals this rhythm. Look at the nautilus shell, the spiral galaxies, the unfurling of ferns in spring. The spiral is everywhere, woven into the very architecture of creation. It is not a flaw in the system. It is the pattern of expansion itself. Each loop contains the memory of all the loops before, yet opens into something vaster. When you begin to see your life this way, compassion blossoms. Instead of shaming yourself for returning to old struggles, you begin to honor them as sacred companions. Here you are again. You might say, what new layer are you ready to show me? And with that shift, the heaviness of failure lifts. The very thing you thought was dragging you backward becomes proof that you are ready to go deeper. The spiral also teaches patience. Transformation is not about racing to escape the past. It is about learning to walk it with greater awareness each time it returns. Each encounter becomes gentler, more integrated, the same way a scar on the body fades but never fully disappears. Our wounds do not vanish. They become part of the story we carry. part of the wisdom we offer. And here is where the spiral becomes healing. It shows us that nothing in our journey is wasted. Every pain, every fall, every stumble becomes part of the architecture of our evolution. What once felt unbearable becomes the very material through which compassion is built. What once seemed meaningless becomes the thread in a pattern we could not yet see. Imagine your life as a great piece of music. Themes repeat, melodies return, but each time they are played, they come with new layers, new harmonies, new depth. The return is not redundancy, it is richness. Your life is the same. The spiral ensures that your song is not a single straight line of notes, but a composition of echoes and returns, weaving a beauty only possible through revisiting and deepening. So when you find yourself facing an old pattern once more, pause before you judge. Ask yourself, what has changed in me since the last time I stood here? You may notice you are calmer. You may respond with more presence. You may no longer feel the same urgency to run. These are signs of the spiral lifting you upward. Even as you circle back, the truth is, we are not here to escape the cycle. We are here to spiral through it until every part of us has been touched by awareness, until love has reached even the darkest corners, until every wound has been honored, not erased. The spiral leads us there, not by pulling us forward in a straight line, but by bringing us back again and again until nothing within us remains outside the embrace of consciousness. And so, I say this, as one who has circled back many times, do not fear the spiral, trust it. Every return is proof of your expansion. Every old lesson that reappears is an invitation to live from a higher place. You are not going in circles, you are spiraling into wholeness. 5. The signal of transformation. When people imagine change, they often picture something bright and inspiring, a sudden rush of clarity, a powerful burst of motivation, a sense that everything has finally clicked into place. But real transformation rarely feels like that. In truth, it feels unsettled, confusing, like you are caught between two frequencies on an old radio. One moment, you catch the static-filled voice of who you used to be, and the next, you glimpse the faint music of who you are becoming. Yet neither station is clear, and you are left in the strange tension of in-between. This dissonance, as uncomfortable as it is not a sign of failure. It is the most reliable signal that transformation is underway. If you feel torn between parts of yourself, one foot planted in the old, the other testing the ground of the new, that means you are standing at the threshold of growth. Think of it like the shifting of seasons. When winter begins to loosen its grip, the air does not immediately fill with summer warmth. There are days when the cold still bites, followed by days when the sun feels unusually soft. Then, suddenly, frost returns. You might question whether spring is really coming at all. But the truth is, the very fluctuation between cold and warmth is proof that the season is changing. The inconsistency is not failure, it is transition. The same is true within you. When you feel yourself oscillating between old patterns and new possibilities, you are not stuck, you are reorganizing. Consciousness is stretching, destabilizing, making room for something that has never existed before. The unease, the uncertainty, the sense of being in between is the birthing ground of transformation. I've felt this many times in my own life. There were periods when I longed for clarity, but all I had was confusion. I would wake with a sense of promise, only to fall back into familiar doubts by night. At first, I thought this meant I was failing, that I wasn't strong enough or disciplined enough to truly change. But over time, I came to see that the discomfort was not proof of weakness. It was proof that I was in motion. The old me was unraveling, while the new me had not yet fully taken shape. That tension was the signal that I was exactly where I needed to be. The human mind resists this liminal space. It wants certainty, direction, a straight line forward. But transformation doesn't honor the linear demands of the mind. It honors the organic rhythm of the soul. And the soul moves like waves forward. Back. Forward again until the new pattern stabilizes. The wobble is not evidence that you are broken. It is evidence that you are alive in the process of becoming. It's like learning to walk. A child does not rise from crawling and immediately stride across the room. They stand, wobble, fall, try again. Each tumble is not a mistake. It's part of the nervous system reorganizing itself, finding balance. In the same way, every time you slip back into an old pattern, every time you feel the tug of who you used to be, it is not regression, it is practice. It is the body and mind recalibrating for a new way of being. And here's something that may bring comfort: the turbulence before breakthrough is natural law. Even in neuroscience, researchers have found that the brain's activity often becomes more chaotic just before it reorganizes into a new state. Systems destabilize before they find higher order. What feels like chaos is actually the signal of reordering. So when you notice yourself caught between old and new, reactive one moment, expansive the next, pause before you judge. Recognize it as the signal. Your nervous system is adapting. Your consciousness is stretching. You are not failing. You are tuning. There is a deep tenderness in this space. It can feel raw, vulnerable, as though your skin has been stripped away and every breeze stings. But vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is the ground of rebirth. Just as the soil must break open for the seed to sprout, just as the cocoon must dissolve for the butterfly to emerge, so too must your old structures loosen before the new can take form. Many people turn back at this stage. They misinterpret the discomfort as proof they are on the wrong path. But the opposite is true. The unease is confirmation you are crossing the threshold. To retreat into the familiar may feel safer, but it prolongs the cycle. To stay with the dissonance, to breathe through it, to allow yourself to be stretched, that is what opens the door to lasting change. Think of a piece of music. Before resolution comes, there is often tension. The chords strain, the notes pull against one another, creating a sense of longing. And then, finally, the resolution arrives, and the harmony feels all the more beautiful because of the dissonance that came before. Transformation works the same way. The tension you feel now is the music of your becoming. So if you are restless, uncertain, pulled in two directions, take heart. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning. The very fact that you feel the wobble, the churning, the unease, means your old self is loosening its grip and your new self is stirring awake. It means you are standing between worlds, no longer fully who you were, not yet fully who you will be. And that is the most sacred ground you can stand on. In those moments, the invitation is simple: breathe. Do not demand clarity. Do not force resolution. Trust that the dissonance is the bridge, not the obstacle. Allow yourself to be in between, because in that liminal space, the wave of superposition collapses and your life finds a new coherence. Transformation doesn't feel like a perfect sunrise. It feels like the wobble of dawn, shadows still long, light still uncertain, but growing stronger with every breath. And one day, almost without noticing, you will wake to find that the new frequency has settled, that the static has cleared, that the music of your becoming is playing clear and strong. 6. The power of co-creation. There is a quiet truth about life that many of us overlook. The inner world and the outer world are not separate. They move together, like two sides of the same breath. The shifts you make within yourself ripple outward, reorganizing the relationships, opportunities, and circumstances around you. This is not philosophy alone, it is the lived reality of consciousness. Science, in its own way, has begun to glimpse this truth. In quantum physics, There is a phenomenon called entanglement. When two particles have interacted, they remain connected across any distance. What happens to one instantly influences the other, no matter how far apart they are. In a similar way, your consciousness is entangled with every aspect of your life, every person you've met, every place you've touched, every intention you've carried. When you shift, the field of your life shifts with you. You've probably felt this. Perhaps you've experienced a season where, after committing inwardly to change, your outer world began to rearrange itself in unexpected ways. A relationship that once drained you suddenly faded from your orbit. A new opportunity arose, almost out of nowhere, perfectly aligned with your heart. Old patterns dissolved. New doors opened. It might have felt like coincidence, but deep inside, you sensed it was more. It was life mirroring your inner state. I remember a time in my own life when I was weighed down by fear and scarcity. I carried those frequencies like invisible armor, and sure enough, the people and opportunities around me reflected that armor. Conversations felt heavy. Work felt draining. Even when blessings appeared, I couldn't truly receive them because my inner world was tuned to lack. But when I began the slow, patient work of shifting inside, breathing into trust, opening into gratitude, I noticed the strangest thing. Without forcing anything, my outer world began to change. People who resonated with that trust appeared. Projects that felt nourishing began to flow toward me. The shift within became a shift without. This is the essence of co-creation. You are not a passive observer, condemned to react to whatever life hands you. Nor are you a tyrant, controlling every detail of reality with sheer willpower. You are a partner. Life is constantly listening to the vibration of your inner world and reflecting it back to you through the circumstances you meet. But here's the subtlety. Co-creation is not about forcing outcomes, it is about alignment. Too often, people hear the word manifestation and imagine that if they just think hard enough, they can bend life to their will. But the truth is gentler. Real co-creation begins when you soften, when you release resistance, when you allow your consciousness to resonate with what is true. In that resonance, life organizes itself around you, not because you are pushing, but because you are allowing. Imagine your consciousness as a tuning fork. Strike it, and it vibrates at a certain pitch. That vibration resonates with everything around it, causing other strings, other instruments, to hum in harmony. In the same way, your inner state hums into the field of your life, and the people and opportunities that match your vibration begin to appear. The outer world does not create the song, it responds to the one you are already singing inside. This is why deep change requires honesty. You cannot deceive the field. You may say with your mind, I am abundant, I am free. But if your body is still carrying fear, if your heart is still weighed down by self-doubt, the vibration you emit is mixed. The field reflects that mixture back to you. This is not punishment. It is precision. Life mirrors not what you wish for, but what you truly are in this moment. And yet, this is also the beauty of co-creation. Every shift, no matter how small, matters. Each time you choose love instead of fear, patience instead of control, presence instead of distraction, you shift your frequency. And that shift, subtle though it may be, ripples outward into the web of your relationships, your work, your health, your future. Sometimes the changes happen quietly, like seeds sprouting beneath the soil. You may not see them right away, but give them time, and suddenly a new landscape appears. The person who once triggered you now evokes compassion. The job that felt unbearable leads you to a path you never imagined. The doors you thought were closed reveal hidden hinges, opening when you are ready to step through. This is not magic in the sense of bending reality against its will. It is magic in the truest sense, the natural intelligence of life responding to the song of your soul. I've seen this in others. 2. A friend who carried deep wounds of abandonment began to heal those places within. Without seeking it, he soon found himself surrounded by people who cherished and supported him in ways he had never known. Another friend who lived in constant fear of failure slowly softened into self-trust, and opportunities for creativity and success began arriving as if they had been waiting for her all along. These stories are not accidents. They are reflections of the same principle. When you shift inside, the world shifts with you. So what does co-creation ask of you? Not perfection, not control, only sincerity. It asks you to become honest about the frequency you are living in, and to nurture the states that align with the life you long for. It asks for trust, that the field of life is intelligent enough to meet you halfway. It asks for patience, that not every seed blooms overnight. And most of all, it asks for presence, that you live today, not as a rehearsal for tomorrow, but as the very stage upon which the miracle of co-creation is already happening. When you begin to see life this way, gratitude deepens. Every synchronicity becomes a wink from the universe. Every challenge becomes an invitation to align more clearly. Every blessing becomes evidence that you are in partnership with something far greater than yourself. So, if you notice your world shifting in strange and unexpected ways, do not dismiss it. Look within. Ask yourself, what has changed in me that is now being reflected around me? The answer will remind you of your power, not the power to control everything, but the power to participate fully in the dance of existence. The truth is simple. You are not separate from the intelligence that weaves your life. You are not a passive passenger, nor a controlling driver. You are a co-creator, walking hand in hand with life itself. And the more you honor that partnership, the more your outer world becomes a faithful reflection of your deepest truth. 7. The expression of spiritual rebirth. There comes a moment in the journey of transformation that feels like everything you thought you were is dissolving. The roles, the identities, the beliefs you clung to begin to crumble, and you may feel as though your very self is vanishing. Many traditions call this the death of the ego, and while those words sound frightening, I have come to see that it is not death in the sense of destruction. It is rebirth. Think of the caterpillar. For much of its life, it crawls the earth, moving leaf to leaf, bound to the ground. Then something inside stirs, and it spins a cocoon. What happens next is astonishing. The caterpillar doesn't simply grow wings while keeping its old form. No, it dissolves entirely into a kind of liquid potential, a formless soup of possibility. From that very dissolution, a new being organizes itself, the butterfly. The caterpillar's end is not a tragedy. It is the sacred reorganization required for flight. The same is true within us. The so-called ego death is not a punishment. It is the inner structures dissolving so that a more expansive version of you can emerge. The you that was built from fear, from old stories, from survival strategies begins to melt away. At first, this feels terrifying. You may wonder, if I am not my achievements, my titles, my roles, my wounds, then who am I? That uncertainty is the cocoon. It is the space between what has been and what is being born. In my own life, I have walked through such dissolutions more than once. Each time felt like being stripped of all certainty. There were nights when I lay awake, no longer able to believe the old stories, yet unable to see the new ones clearly. It felt like free fall. And yet, looking back, I see that those seasons were not the end of me. They were the moments life was reorganizing me from the inside out. Spiritual rebirth rarely arrives with fireworks. It is quiet. It happens in the spaces in between the silence after a long cry, the stillness of an early morning, the pause between endings and beginnings. At first, you may only notice subtle signs, a sense of peace where fear once ruled, a gentleness toward yourself where judgment used to echo. A sudden lightness in places that once felt heavy. These are not small things. They are the first wings of your becoming the Tess. But let us be honest, rebirth is not always comfortable. Just as labor contractions signal the birth of a child, the contractions of the soul can feel like breaking. Old patterns resist their dissolution. Old identities fight to stay alive. You may feel grief, anger, emptiness. These are not signs that something has gone wrong. They are the natural labor pains of the new self being born. The gift is that what emerges from this process is not a stranger. It is not a new identity to cling to crestries. It is your deeper essence, who you were beneath the roles and stories all along. Spiritual rebirth is less about becoming someone else, and more about remembering who you truly are, when all that is false has fallen away. Think of the times you have laughed without effort, loved without fear, or sat in stillness without needing to prove anything. Those moments are glimpses of your true self, pure, unguarded, whole. The death of the ego simply clears away the clutter, so those glimpses become your way of being, not just passing moments. And here lies the paradox. Ego death feels like loss. But what is lost was never truly you. The titles, the defenses, the false beliefs, these are like costumes worn for a time. They serve their purpose. They teach their lessons, but eventually they must be shed. What remains is not emptiness, but essence. In many ways, spiritual rebirth is the most natural process in the world. Nature shows us again and again. Forests burn, and from the ash, new life emerges, richer than before. The moon wanes into darkness, only to wax again into fullness. Rivers dry up, then return with the rains, carving new paths. Dissolution and rebirth are not exceptions. They are the rhythm of existence itself. You are no different. The challenge is to trust the process when you are in the cocoon, to stay soft when everything in you wants to harden, to let yourself dissolve without rushing to rebuild too quickly. The mind wants to grab onto a new identity, a new plan, a new certainty. But spiritual rebirth asks you to linger in the mystery, to allow the reorganization to happen on its own, for only then can the butterfly emerge not as a forced construction, but as a natural unfolding. I have seen many people stop just short of this rebirth. They feel the dissolution and mistake it for failure. They grasp for old patterns, old comforts, anything to avoid the void. But those who trust, those who stay, discover something extraordinary. The void is not empty. It is full of potential, full of presence, full of the life that is waiting to be born through them. So if you are in a season where you feel yourself unraveling, where the old no longer fits but the new has not yet appeared, take heart. You are not dying. You are reorganizing. You are not falling apart. You are being remade. And the self that will emerge is not weaker, not smaller, but freer, truer, more aligned with the vast intelligence of life. The expression of spiritual rebirth is not about perfection. It is about authenticity. It is about living as the one who no longer needs to hide behind masks or defend with walls. It is about being transparent to love, open to presence, willing to let life move through you as it is. And when that happens, you discover that what you feared to lose was never your essence. And what you gain cannot be taken away. You are the caterpillar and the butterfly, the death and the rebirth, the dissolution and the becoming. And every time you allow an old self to fall away, you give birth to a deeper truth. That is not an ending. That is the sacred rhythm of life expressing itself through you. 8. The wisdom of slowing down. In a world that glorifies speed, slowing down can feel like rebellion. We are conditioned to measure worth by productivity, to treat every pause as wasted time, and to believe that rushing is the only way to keep up with life. Yet the deepest truths of existence are not found in the frantic pace of doing. They are discovered in the still waters of being. When you slow down, the ordinary begins to reveal its sacredness. The warmth of a cup of coffee no longer passes unnoticed. It becomes an invitation into the miracle of taste, temperature, and sensation. The simple rhythm of your breath becomes a reminder that life is always supporting you, moment after moment, without you needing to force or control it. Even the act of walking, often hurried and unconscious, transforms into a meditation when each step is taken with awareness. The ground beneath your feet whispers of stability. The silence between your steps carries the echo of timeless presence. This slowing down is not laziness. It is not withdrawal from life. It is the opposite. It is entering life more fully, with both eyes open and the heart unclenched. When you move slowly, you begin to notice the subtle vibrations that were hidden by your haste. A bird's song that you would have rushed past now becomes music that stirs something ancient within you. A glance from a stranger becomes a reminder that we are all mirrors, reflecting back fragments of the same light. The ordinary becomes extraordinary because presence reveals the inherent beauty woven into everything. Quantum physics suggests that at the deepest level, reality is not made of solid objects, but of vibrating fields of energy. When you slow down, you attune yourself to these subtle frequencies. The rushing mind, always leaping into the next moment, drowns out this quiet hum of existence. But when you are still, when you linger with a breath, with a moment, with the taste of the air, you begin to feel the larger field holding you. This is not imagination. It is direct perception of the quantum fabric in which you already exist. There is a reason so many spiritual traditions emphasize silence, stillness, and mindfulness. It is not because life should be joyless or austere, but because only in the space of slowness can you recognize the vast intelligence breathing through you. The fast mind clings to control. The slow mind surrenders to connection. And in surrender, you discover that the life you were chasing has been within you all along. I remember a time in my own life when everything felt like a race, always another goal, another achievement, another step to take before I could feel complete. The faster I moved, the emptier I felt. It was only when life forced me into stillness through exhaustion, heartbreak, or sheer collapse that I began to glimpse the wisdom of slowing down. At first, it felt unbearable, like being left behind while the world surged ahead. But slowly, I noticed the hidden gifts, the way light softened at sunset, the way silence could hold me more gently than words, the way my own breath became a lullaby for a restless heart. Slowing down is how we begin to heal. Trauma often leaves us spinning, trying to outrun the memories, the sensations, the ache. But healing asks for the opposite: to slow down enough to feel what was never felt, to allow the body to release what it has carried, to give space for the heart to soften again. In the slowness, we learn that we are safe. In the slowness, we find that the past cannot harm us here. And as you slow down, you begin to notice synchronicities that were always happening, but often overlooked. A book arrives in your path just when you needed it. A phrase overheard in a cafe mirrors your inner thoughts. A song plays at the exact moment it carries the message your heart longed for. These are not accidents. They are the language of the quantum field, speaking through the rhythm of presence. And only when you slow down do you hear its voice. The wisdom of slowing down is not about retreating from life forever. It is about learning to move in harmony with it. Just as a musician pauses between notes to give the melody meaning, your pauses give depth to your existence. Life is not meant to be one endless crescendo. It is a dance of rise and fall, sound and silence, motion and stillness. When you give yourself permission to slow down, you also give others permission. Your calm presence becomes a mirror. Your pace communicates that it is safe to breathe, safe to rest, safe to be. In this way, slowing down is not just a personal practice. It is an offering to the collective. It is how we shift from a world driven by frantic scarcity into one guided by presence and sufficiency. There is a phrase often whispered in the stillness: the slower you go, the more you see. This is true not only outwardly but inwardly. The more you slow down, the more you perceive the movements of your own soul, the nudges of your intuition, the whispers of guidance that were always there beneath the noise. You realize that the answers you sought by rushing were waiting for you in the quiet all along. So the next time you find yourself caught in the urgency of the world, pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Take one conscious breath. Sip your tea slowly. Watch the way light dances on the wall. Let time stretch. Not as a cage, but as a canvas. In that slowing down, you are not falling behind. You are entering the timeless field where all things connect. The wisdom of slowing down is this: when you are present, life itself becomes sacred. Every taste, every breath, every silence is a doorway into the vastness of being. And in that vastness, you discover the truth that has always been here. You were never separate, never rushed, never late. You were always home, in this very moment, waiting to be remembered. 9. The brain's mechanism before breakthrough. There is a strange and beautiful truth that both neuroscience and lived experience reveal right before transformation. The brain falls into chaos. What feels like collapse is, in fact, preparation. What we often call crisis is the nervous system loosening its grip on the old patterns, creating space for a new level of consciousness to emerge. Think of it this way: your brain has spent years building highways of thought and reaction. Every habit, every belief, every fear has carved pathways into the landscape of your mind. They are efficient, automatic, and deeply familiar, even when they no longer serve you. When you begin to change, when you dare to imagine a different life, the brain doesn't simply erase those roads overnight. Instead, it destabilizes. The old pathways crack, dissolve, and lose their certainty. This instability feels uncomfortable, even frightening, but in truth, it is the fertile ground where new networks can take root. Neuroscience tells us that the brain operates on patterns of electrical and chemical firing. When a breakthrough approaches, these patterns lose their old rhythm. What once felt like steady order can suddenly feel like noise. You may feel scattered, forgetful, or overwhelmed. You might notice surges of anxiety, moments of deep fatigue, or strange swings in emotion. To the untrained mind, these signs feel like failure, but to the deeper wisdom of life, they are signs of birth. Consider the analogy of remodeling a house. Before new walls can rise, the old ones must be torn down. Dust fills the air. The structure looks incomplete, and chaos seems to reign. Yet, underneath, a new design is taking shape. The same is true in the brain. Dismantling the old circuits is messy, but without that mess, no new reality can be built. In these moments of inner upheaval, the temptation is to panic. The ego clings to the familiar, interpreting instability as danger. It whispers, "You're losing control. You're falling apart. This can't be right." But what if the opposite is true? What if the very sensation of falling apart is evidence that you are falling into something greater? From a quantum perspective, this chaos is not random. It is the trembling of energy right before it reorganizes into a higher order. Just as atoms vibrate wildly before settling into a new configuration, your mind shakes loose its old identity before it can stabilize in a new one. The disorientation is not punishment, it is preparation. I remember walking through seasons where everything in me felt scrambled. My thoughts were cloudy. My emotions surged without reason, and I felt like I was losing my footing in life. At the time, I called it crisis, but looking back, I see it for what it was: a nervous system rewiring itself for a different way of being. The very moments I thought I was breaking were the ones where the deeper intelligence of life was breaking me open. The key in these times is trust. Trust that chaos is not the end. Trust that your brain and body are wise beyond measure, designed to renew themselves. When the caterpillar dissolves into liquid inside the cocoon, it may look like the end of life. But within that formlessness, the imaginal cells, the seeds of the butterfly, begin to awaken. So too in you, when old structures dissolve, the seeds of your new self are already stirring. This is why practices of presence are so essential during upheaval. When your brain feels unstable, you may want to escape into distraction, numbness, or control. But if you can breathe into the chaos, if you can soften instead of resist, you will find that there is a rhythm hidden inside the noise. Your breath becomes the anchor, your body the ground, your awareness the still point in the storm. Slowly, you begin to realize this chaos is not against me, it is for me. Science calls this phase neuroplasticity. It is the brain's capacity to reorganize itself, to let go of the old and form the new. But lived wisdom calls it rebirth. You cannot leap into higher consciousness without passing through this gate of disorder. To fight it is to prolong it. To trust it is to move through it with grace. Imagine waves crashing against the shore. In the turbulence, the water looks wild and uncontained. Yet soon, the tide recedes, leaving the sand smoothed, refreshed, made new. Your mind, too, will find its rhythm again. And when it does, you will not return to the old shore. You will awaken on a new one. So, if you find yourself in this place confused, disoriented, unable to recognize who you are becoming, know this: you are not failing. You are not broken. You are in the sacred chaos before a breakthrough. The brain is rewiring. The soul is expanding. And the self you thought you were is making way for the one you are meant to be. The truth is simple, but profound. Chaos precedes order. Breakdown precedes breakthrough. The storm is the signal that new life is near. And as you rest inside that storm with presence and compassion, you begin to feel the quiet miracle. Your consciousness is not collapsing. It is rising. 10. Living from your true essence. There comes a moment in the journey when the old stories no longer have the same grip. The names you've worn, the roles you've played, the masks you've held up to be loved or accepted, they begin to feel heavy, as if they no longer fit the shape of who you are. This is not a failure of identity, but the beginning of freedom. To live from your true essence is to no longer be bound by the drama of the ego. The ego is not evil. It is simply a storyteller. It writes scripts about who you are, what you must achieve, and how others must see you. For a time, these stories may even be useful. They guide you. They protect you. They help you navigate the world. But eventually, like shoes that no longer fit, they begin to pinch. They become too small for the vastness of your being. When the grip of ego loosens, something remarkable happens. You become transparent. Not transparent in the sense of being unseen, but in the sense of being unobstructed. The light of life itself shines through you. You are no longer straining to manufacture wisdom, in strength, or love. You are simply allowing what is already there, the infinite intelligence of the universe, to move through you. Mystics across traditions have named this differently. In Buddhism, it is Buddha nature, the recognition that beneath all illusion, the awakened mind is already present within you. In Christianity, it is called Christ consciousness, the awareness that divine love is not outside of you, but your very core. These words may differ, but they point to the same truth. Your essence is not something you must earn or achieve. It is what you are. Living from this essence feels like exhaling after years of holding your breath. You no longer need to prove, to defend, to constantly construct an identity. Life becomes less about performing and more about being. There is a quiet strength here, Not the kind that shouts or dominates, but the kind that radiates without effort, like the steady glow of a candle in the dark. In this space, you begin to notice that your actions are no longer driven by fear or the need for control. Instead, they rise naturally from presence. You may find yourself speaking words of kindness you did not plan, offering wisdom you did not rehearse, creating beauty you did not force. It is as if life itself is speaking through you, painting through you, loving through you. From the outside, this may look ordinary. You still drink your coffee in the morning, still greet the neighbor, still walk the same streets. But on the inside, there is a subtle difference. You are not lost in thought, but rooted in being. Each sip of coffee becomes sacred. Each encounter becomes a mirror of the divine. Each breath is a prayer. The ego often whispers that if you release your stories, you will disappear, that without your achievements, your labels, your drama, you will be nothing. But the opposite is true. When you drop what you are not, you become what you have always been: infinite, radiant, alive. This is not the loss of self, but the unveiling of self, the self that is one with all. I remember the first time I touched this space. It wasn't in a temple or during a grand meditation. It happened in the quiet of an ordinary morning, sunlight spilling across the floor. For a brief moment, I wasn't trying to fix myself, or achieve anything, or even think of the future. I was simply present, and in that presence, I felt it, a river of love flowing through me, vast and tender, needing no reason. That love was not mine, and yet it was me. To live from your true essence does not mean you will never face challenges or pain. The storms of life still come, but you are no longer tossed about by them, because you are rooted in something deeper than circumstance. You are anchored in being. Pain may pass through you, but it does not define you. Fear may visit, but it does not own you. The essence of who you are remains untouched, unbroken, eternal. This way of living is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about entering it more fully, but from a different place. When you live from essence, your presence itself becomes medicine. You don't have to fix others or preach to them. Your very being radiates peace, reminding them of the truth within themselves. Like a tuning fork that brings other instruments into harmony, your vibration naturally invites others to remember their own wholeness. And so, the invitation is simple yet profound. Let go of the stories that no longer serve you. Let go of the endless effort to be someone. Instead, rest in the awareness of what you already are. Let the universe move through you, the way wind moves through trees, the way rivers carve valleys, the way stars scatter light across the night sky. To live from your true essence is to return home, not to a place, but to yourself. And when you rest here, you realize the journey was never about becoming something greater. It was about remembering that what you sought was already alive within you, quietly waiting for you to notice. 11. The collective meaning. There is a quiet truth that reveals itself. When you walk far enough on the inner path, your transformation is never yours alone. Every step you take into greater freedom, every time you choose love over fear, every breath you take in awareness rather than in distraction, it all ripples outward into the greater field of life. We like to think of ourselves as isolated individuals, moving through the world with separate destinies. Yet beneath the surface, we are entangled, much like particles in the quantum field. What touches one, in some subtle way, touches all. Science has only begun to map what mystics have always known. Consciousness is not confined within the skull. It radiates. It connects. It weaves us together into a vast tapestry of being. When you shift within yourself, the resonance of that shift does not stop at the boundary of your skin. Imagine striking a single tuning fork in a room filled with instruments. The vibration spreads, and soon, other strings begin to hum in sympathy. This is what happens when one person begins to embody presence, compassion, or peace, without forcing, without preaching. Their very being sends signals into the collective, reminding others of a deeper possibility. You may not see the effects directly. You may never know the lives touched by the simple fact of your awakening, but that does not make it less real. The mother who chooses patience with her child instead of anger has altered the trajectory of that child's life. The stranger who offers kindness instead of indifference has softened the edges of someone's despair. The person who sits quietly in awareness, releasing fear into love, has shifted the invisible field in ways no measure can capture. This is why your inner work matters more than you realize. The healing of your wounds, the releasing of your fears, the awakening of your heart, it is not only for you, it is an offering to humanity. Each time you rise into a higher frequency of being, you extend a hand, unseen but felt, to those still stumbling in the dark. I have lived long enough to see how this works in ways both subtle and profound. I have watched people change simply by being in the presence of someone who has done the work of remembering themselves. No words were spoken. No doctrines exchanged. Just a shared space where truth was alive. It is as if the collective mind recognizes when someone carries a spark of light and responds with its own hidden flame. And so, when you wonder whether your struggles are worth it, remember, you are not walking this path for yourself alone. You are part of a larger unfolding, a greater awakening that stretches across cultures, generations, and histories. Your courage to choose love instead of fear sends a signal that others can follow. Your presence becomes a lighthouse for those lost at sea. This does not mean you must strive to save the world. That itself is another trap of ego, the savior complex that believes it must fix what is broken. Living from your true essence is not about heroic effort, but about simple alignment. It is enough to tend to your own consciousness, to live with integrity, to return again and again to love. From that place, your life naturally becomes medicine for others. Collective transformation is not a sudden revolution, but a slow and steady rising of frequency. Like the dawn, it begins in darkness, with only a faint glow on the horizon. Yet as more lights awaken, the night inevitably gives way to day. Each individual awakening contributes to that dawn. Each act of presence, however small, is a candle added to the growing fire of humanity's renewal. The great teachers have always understood this. They knew that their own awakening was never theirs to keep, but to share, and sharing did not always mean speaking. Sometimes it meant simply embodying, becoming a living example of what it looks like to rest in truth. This is why their presence could heal, inspire, and transform without effort. They were no longer separate individuals. They were vessels of the whole. And so are you. Even in your ordinariness, even in the quiet of your daily life, you are participating in this collective unfolding. The way you listen, the way you forgive, the way you pause to breathe before reacting, all of it sends ripples into the field we all share. The meaning of your personal transformation, then, is far greater than the relief or freedom it brings you. It is the gift it extends to the world. Every time you choose love, you lessen the grip of fear in the collective mind. Every time you live with presence, you remind others that presence is possible. Every time you honor the truth of your being, you help pave the path for humanity's awakening. This is why the journey, though deeply personal, is never private. It is the most intimate and the most universal work you will ever do. The awakening of one is the awakening of all. And so, your life, in all its struggles, breakthroughs, and quiet moments of presence, matters. It matters not just for you, but for all of us, for the great unfolding story of what humanity can become. You are ready now. The end of this journey does not point you towards some distant mountain peak, reserved for the chosen or the disciplined. It leads you right here, to this very breath, to the stillness beating quietly inside your chest. The new life you seek is not waiting for you in another place, another year, or another achievement. It is unfolding now, in this present moment, as you dare to see with fresh eyes. You do not need to strive upward, climbing endlessly toward a summit that recedes with every step. Transformation is not about reaching higher. It is about seeing deeper. It is about remembering that the essence you long for is already woven into you, pulsing in the silence beneath your thoughts, steady as the rhythm of your breath. Look around you. Every sign, every vibration, every subtle shift you feel is not random. It is evidence that consciousness is ready to move, ready to evolve, ready to birth a new expression of life through you. The restlessness, the synchronicities, the disorientation, the glimpses of joy that break through the cracks of old habits, all of it is proof that you stand at the threshold of becoming. You don't need to wait for a grand event, or for the stars to align, or for someone to hand you permission. You already carry what you need. The seed of awakening has always been inside you, patiently waiting for the soil of your surrender, the water of your trust, the sunlight of your presence. So pause, take a slow, conscious breath. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. With each exhale, let the old stories slip away, the ones that told you you were not enough, the ones that told you change was impossible, the ones that insisted you must keep striving, keep proving. Those stories have served their purpose. They can rest now. As you breathe, speak softly to yourself. I am ready. I am ready to release what no longer serves my highest evolution. I am ready to live from truth, from love, from the fullness of who I already am. There is no rush here, no race to win. Awakening does not demand urgency, only sincerity. Every time you choose to return to presence, every time you choose to meet life as it is, you step into the field of becoming. This is what some call the quantum field, the space of infinite possibility, where the past no longer dictates the future, and the present moment becomes a doorway into creation itself. In this field, life ceases to be a tired repetition of old patterns. It becomes alive, dynamic, creative. You are no longer the prisoner of your history. You are the artist of this unfolding moment. Your awareness is the brush, your breath, the canvas, your heart, the color that paints reality anew. And the beauty is this: you do not paint alone. Every time you align with love rather than fear, you strengthen the song of humanity's awakening. Every time you choose to forgive instead of harden, to open instead of close, to rest instead of resist, you add your note to the harmony of the collective. The field becomes brighter, wider, more resonant, not just for you, but for all. The invitation is simple and profound. Come home. Not to an idea, not to an image of perfection, but to the living reality of this moment. Come home to your breath, to your body, to the quiet awareness that watches everything arise and pass. In this homecoming, you discover what was hidden in plain sight. You are whole. You are enough. You are free. The mind will argue. Of course. It will say, but you are not ready. You have not healed enough. You have not meditated enough. You have not proved yourself enough. Smile gently at this voice. Thank it for its effort to protect you, and then let it pass. Like clouds moving across an endless sky. Beneath those clouds, your essence remains untouched, vast, luminous, unshaken. So here you are, standing not on a mountain, but in the sacred ground of now. There is nothing missing. There is nothing to chase. Only the invitation to breathe, to open, to step forward into the living stream of life that is already carrying you. This is the miracle. The journey is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you are, a being through whom the universe dreams, a vessel of love, a spark of infinite awareness wrapped in human form. Let yourself feel the simplicity of it. You don't need fireworks or visions to know it's true. You need only this breath, this heart, this moment. And in that simplicity, a new life begins. Not tomorrow, not after another round of striving, but here, now, in the quiet willingness to surrender. Take one more breath. Release the weight you no longer need. Step into the field of becoming, where life is not repetition, but radiant creation, unfolding moment by moment. And remember, you are not waiting for the new life. You are the new life, already awake, already alive, already enough.